I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how I found out my entire life was a lie. Honestly, I thought I knew everything about my fiancée, Lisa. We had been together for 3 years, and I genuinely believed she was the one. We were planning our wedding, talking about a future, making all the usual plans, buying a house, having kids, the works. She was the perfect girl on paper, smart, funny, beautiful, and she always seemed so dedicated to us. That's why I didn't suspect anything was wrong until a couple of months ago. It all started with little things. Lisa began acting weird around her phone, like she'd hide it when I was in the room, or she'd get defensive if I asked about her texts. At first, I thought maybe she was just being a little secretive because of wedding stress or something. But then I noticed her changing her phone password, and she started canceling plans with her friends last minute, saying she was busy. I didn't push too hard at first. I figured maybe I was just overthinking it. I mean, she's a bit bitchy sometimes, so I figured she was just being her usual self, moody, irritable, snapping at minor things. But deep down, I kept feeling like something was off. Then came the incident that tipped me over the edge. I had taken her phone to look up some wedding stuff, and I noticed a message notification from a guy named Josh. At first, I thought maybe he was just a friend or a work colleague, but then I saw the message itself. It wasn't about work or casual plans. It was borderline flirty, talking about how much she missed him, how much she loved their secret time, and how she couldn't wait to see him again. My stomach dropped. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I stared at that screen for what felt like hours, trying to process what I was seeing. My mind was racing even though I knew what it meant. I wasn't naive enough to think Lisa was just talking to a male friend like that without something more going on. So I kept digging. I went through her messages, her emails, her social media, whatever I could find. It was worse than I imagined. There were texts, pictures, even voice notes. All of it pointed to the fact that she'd been sneaking around behind my back with Josh. But what made it even more brutal was that I found out she'd been lying about it. She had told me she was just friends with him, that they'd only met up a couple of times, nothing serious. But it was a lie. It had been happening for months, and she'd been actively hiding it from me. The worst part, she'd been lying about how she felt about him. She said she hated him, that he was just a stupid mistake, but her texts told a different story. She missed his touch, her words were filled with longing, and she kept talking about how they needed to keep it secret. I couldn't believe I'd been blind to all of it. I thought I knew her. I thought I knew us. Turns out she'd been playing me the whole time, lying right in my face while I was planning a wedding with her. It's almost laughable how fast your world can turn upside down when you find out someone you love has been betraying you for months, and you didn't even see it coming. That discovery hit me like a freight train. I was devastated, furious, and honestly completely lost. I kept asking myself how I could have missed all the signs, how I didn't see that she was capable of this kind of betrayal. I mean, I knew she had a sharp tongue, but I never thought she'd be capable of this kind of deception. I felt so stupid, so naive. All those nights I thought she was out with her friends, and she was actually with him. It's like my whole life was a lie, and I don't even know how to start picking up the pieces. And that's just the beginning. After I found all that stuff on her phone, I couldn't sleep. My head was spinning. I kept going over the details, trying to figure out how long she'd been cheating on me, how many times they'd met. The thing that hurt the most was knowing she had been lying to me for months. While I was busy planning a future with her, she was sneaking around with Josh, thinking she could get away with it. I felt like a fool. I had trusted her completely, and she'd just thrown that trust in the trash. I remember sitting on the couch that night, staring at the screen of her phone, feeling like the ground was crumbling beneath me. I was furious at her, but also deeply hurt. It's one thing to find out your fiancé slept with someone else. It's another to realize she's been lying about it all along. I kept asking myself what I did wrong, if I missed the cues, if I was just blind. But deep down, I knew this wasn't about me. It was about her, her choices, her selfishness, her blatant disrespect. How could she do this to me? How could she betray everything we'd built? I was so angry I could feel my blood boiling. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I knew that wouldn't be wise. I needed to calm down, think this through. But how do you think clearly when your world is crashing down around you? I decided I'd wait. I needed to see her, talk to her face to face, and get some answers. Honestly, I was planning to rip her apart, to lay everything out on the table. I wanted to see her reaction, to see if she even cared that I knew. The next day I came home from work early, heart pounding. I hadn't told anyone about what I'd found. I wanted to handle this alone first to see how she'd react when I confronted her. I also needed to prepare myself emotionally for whatever she might say or do. I was already thinking about the worst. Maybe she'd deny everything. Maybe she'd break down and cry, or maybe she'd get defensive and lie even more. I knew she was good at lying, probably better than I was at trusting her. I found her in the living room, sitting on the couch, looking annoyed even before I said a word. The moment I sat down across from her, the atmosphere was thick with tension. I looked her right in the eyes and said, "Lisa, I need to talk. I know everything." Her face flickered with a mix of anger and guilt, like she'd been caught red-handed, which she had. She looked at me with that fake pout she always used when she was trying to act innocent and said, "What are you talking about? You're overreacting. You don't have any proof." Yeah, right. I pulled out her phone, showing her the messages, the pictures, the voice notes. Her face turned white. She tried to play it off, saying, "Oh, that's nothing. You're just jealous or paranoid. Josh and I were just friends. It's not what you think." She was spinning some BS about how she was stressed, how she was just venting, that it didn't mean anything. I wasn't buying it, not for a second. I told her I saw everything, that I knew she had been lying, that she'd been unfaithful for months. Her reaction was infuriating. She started yelling, crying, calling me crazy. She insisted she loved me, that it was a mistake, that she never meant for it to happen. But I could see in her eyes she was lying. Her words, her tone, none of it added up. It was all bullshit. That confrontation was a mess. She was bitchy, snapping at me, throwing accusations back at me, saying I must have been ignoring her or neglecting her, that I was too busy with work or whatever excuse she could come up with. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never do anything to intentionally hurt me. But I knew better. I saw her for what she was, someone who thought she could get away with whatever she wanted, someone who didn't respect me enough to be honest. I stood there, feeling a mix of heartbreak, rage, and disappointment. I didn't even know who she was anymore. That moment was the catalyst. It hit me hard. She wasn't the girl I thought I'd spend my life with. I realized I was in a relationship with someone who lied, cheated, and disrespected me in the worst way possible. I kept replaying her words, her lies, her fake tears. I wanted to believe she'd change, that she'd apologize and make it right. But deep down, I knew that trust was shattered beyond repair. I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I wanted to leave, to run far away, but I also knew I had to decide what kind of life I wanted from here on out. The days that followed that confrontation were a blur of pain and confusion. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and every time I closed my eyes I saw her face, heard her voice, and thought about all the lies she told me. I kept asking myself how she could be so cruel, so manipulative. How did she think she could get away with betraying me and then just brush it off? The worst part was knowing she had been lying to me all those months. While I was planning our wedding, she was making a mess of everything behind my back. I decided I needed some time to myself. I moved out of our apartment for a few days. I couldn't stand to be around her, not after what I'd discovered. I started going to the gym more, trying to clear my head, but nothing seemed to help. Everywhere I looked, I saw her face, her lies. Everything that I thought was real was suddenly just a house of cards, ready to fall apart. I felt empty, betrayed, and above all, angry. Angry at her, at Josh, and at myself for trusting her so blindly. During those few days, I kept asking myself if I should call it quits, if I could even forgive her. I mean, how do you come back from something like this? How do you look at someone you loved and see nothing but a liar and a cheat? But then, part of me wondered if there was any way she'd genuinely regret what she did, if she'd try to make amends. The problem was, I wasn't sure I could ever trust her again, not after seeing her true face. Still, I knew I had to confront her again, face whatever was coming, because I couldn't just walk away without a final talk. When I finally went back to the apartment, her reaction was typical. Defensive, bitchy, trying to spin it like I was overreacting. She played the victim, saying she was sorry but that I was being paranoid. She threw in that she was stressed, that she was under pressure, that Josh was just a mistake she never wanted. Yeah, right. I looked at her and thought, this girl is a master of lies. I could see the cracks in her story. There was no remorse in her eyes, only that sneaky, bitchy glare she always used when she wanted to manipulate me. I decided I couldn't keep going like this. I told her I needed space. I said I was hurt, betrayed, and that I needed time to think about everything. That was a lie, really. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was ready. Walk away. I couldn't be with someone who thought lying and cheating were okay. I wanted to believe there was still some part of her that cared enough to try to fix this, but honestly, I didn't see it. What I saw was a woman who thought she could get away with anything, including sleeping with her best friend's ex-brother-in-law, and then lying about it for months. Over the next few days, I gathered my thoughts and started planning how I'd handle this. I knew I couldn't stay with her, not after what she did. I started making arrangements to move out permanently. I also contacted some friends for support because I knew I'd need people around me to get through this mess. The hardest part was realizing how much I'd invested in this relationship, my time, my trust, my future, and how easily she threw it all away. It was a painful lesson, but I also knew that I deserved better. I deserved honesty, respect, and loyalty, not a bitchy liar who thought she could play me for a fool. Looking back now, I realized that the biggest shock was how quickly I went from trusting her completely to seeing her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who only cared about herself. It's crazy how betrayal can open your eyes so fast. I still feel a sting when I think about her lying in my face, but I also feel a strange sense of relief. I don't know what's going to happen next, whether I'll ever fully trust again or if I'll just learn to move on. But one thing's clear. I refuse to stay in a relationship where I'm constantly being lied to. I deserve better than that. The decision to leave was not easy, but once I made up my mind, everything else fell into place pretty quickly. I packed my stuff over a couple of days, clothes, some personal items, a few mementos that still meant something to me. I didn't want to drag this out. I knew I had to cut ties cleanly. When I finally told Lisa I was leaving for good, her reaction was typical, angry, bitchy, and dismissive. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying I was overreacting, that I was making a huge deal out of nothing, that I was the one being unreasonable. But I wasn't buying her act anymore. I told her, straight up, that I knew everything, and I wasn't going to stay with someone who lied, cheated, and disrespected me. Her bitchy attitude only got worse, throwing lots of accusations my way, calling me a paranoid mess, saying I was crazy for thinking she'd do something like this. Honestly, hearing her try to spin it just reinforced what I already knew, that she had no remorse and no respect for me. I felt grossly disrespected, like she had taken all of my love and thrown it back in my face. The day I moved out, I felt a strange mixture of relief and heartbreak. Part of me still loved her, still wanted to believe she'd somehow change, but a bigger part was angry, furious, really, that she'd betrayed everything I thought we had. I kept telling myself I deserved to be happy, that I deserved someone who wouldn't lie about such a huge thing. I wasn't going to waste my life on a woman who thought she could manipulate me with tears and bullshit excuses. It was a wake-up call, a brutal lesson, but finally I was free, free from the lies, the betrayal, and the emotional roller coaster I'd been on. Once I moved out, I stayed with a friend for a few days, needling through that pain of abandonment. It's weird. On one hand, I felt numb, like I was just going through the motions. But on the other, every so often, I'd get hit with these waves of sadness, anger, and regret. I kept replaying all the moments I'd trusted her, all the times I ignored the signs, convinced myself she was worth fighting for. Now I see how blind I was. That girl, Lisa, she knew exactly what she was doing, lying, cheating, trying to hide her tracks, and I was just a fool thinking she loved me. How could she do this? How could someone be so cold? At the same time, I started to realize that I was better off without her. Yeah, it hurt like hell, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I didn't want to be with someone who didn't respect me enough to tell the truth, someone who'd sleep with my best friend's sister, then lie for months about it. I started thinking about what I really wanted in life: honesty, loyalty, respect. I refused to stay in a relationship where I was just a pawn in her game. That betrayal changed everything for me. It's like I finally saw her for what she truly was: selfish, cunning, and utterly ruthless in her lies. I also spent a lot of time reflecting on how I let myself get here. I trusted her so blindly. I thought I was building a future with someone who cared. Turns out, she was just playing the part of the perfect girl until she found someone better, or maybe just someone she thought she could keep secret. Whatever her reasons, it didn't matter anymore. The only thing that mattered was that I was done. Done with the lies, the betrayal, the fake smile she put on for everyone else. In the end, I learned a lot about myself. I learned that trust is fragile, that people can surprise you in terrible ways, and that sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to cut the cord and walk away. I don't think I'll ever fully forget what happened, but I also know I won't let it define me. I have to keep moving forward, even if it hurts. I refuse to let her betrayal turn me into someone bitter. It's just another lesson, one I wish I hadn't had to learn the hard way. But I guess sometimes you have to go through hell to realize what you truly deserve. After I moved out and took some time to breathe, the reality of everything hit me even harder. I kept thinking about how much I'd invested, my time, my trust, my dreams, and how she'd just thrown it all away with her lies and her sex with Josh. It was like waking up from a nightmare where the person you loved the most turns out to be someone you never really knew. I won't lie, it shattered me. I felt like I'd been sucker punched in the gut and I was just trying to stay upright. But even in that mess of pain, I knew I had to find a way to move on. I couldn't stay bitter forever. I started focusing on myself. I went back to the gym, threw myself into work, and tried to rebuild that sense of normalcy I'd lost. I also reached out to some friends for support, guys I trusted, who knew nothing about her, who could remind me of my worth. It helped. A little, but there were still nights I would lie awake replaying everything, trying to figure out how I missed so many signs, how I could have done things differently. The truth is, I wasn't perfect, but I also never expected her to be so damn dishonest. During those quiet moments, I'd ask myself, what now? Do I try to fix this? Do I fight for her and hope she changes? Or do I let go and just move on? Honestly, the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I couldn't fix her. No amount of apologies or tears would undo what she'd done. Trust, once broken like that, isn't so easy to rebuild. I knew I'd never look at her the same way again. I couldn't see her as the girl I'd loved, not after learning she'd lied, cheated, and played me for months. That realization was brutal, but it also set me free. So I made a decision. I told her I wanted nothing to do with her anymore, that I was done with the lies, the betrayal, and the fake apologies. I don't think she truly understood how much she'd lost, how she'd just thrown away the best thing that ever happened to her. But I also knew I didn't need her to understand. I needed to focus on myself now. I needed to heal, to rebuild my confidence, and to find someone who deserved my honesty and loyalty. I realized that I had to accept that some betrayals are final. You can't fix everything. Sometimes you just have to walk away and accept that it's over. It's been a few weeks now since I made that decision. The pain still lingers, but it's less sharp. I've started dating again. Nothing serious yet, just small steps. I don't trust easily anymore, but I'm learning that I don't have to let her betrayal define me. I've started working on myself, rediscovering what I want from life and from a relationship. I'm trying to see this as a painful but necessary lesson. Because if I've learned anything, it's that someone's true character shows when they think no one's watching, especially in moments of weakness or temptation. Lisa's true colors were clear as day: selfish, manipulative, and utterly indifferent to my feelings. Looking back, I can say I'm a little stronger than I was before. Not completely healed, not over it entirely, but definitely moving forward. I still get angry sometimes. Still wonder how she could be so bitchy and dishonest. But I also know I deserve better. I deserve someone who's honest, loyal, and respectful from the start. I guess what I want to tell anyone reading this is, trust your instincts, but also remember that people can surprise you, even the ones you love. And when they do, you gotta be willing to walk away. Because no matter how much you love someone, if they're willing to hurt you that badly, it's better to let go than stay and suffer. Trust me, I wish I'd learned that sooner, but now I know my worth. and I refuse to let anyone treat me like I'm disposable. It's been a rough ride, no doubt about it. Honestly, I've gone through every emotion you can imagine: anger, sadness, disappointment, even moments of hopelessness. But through it all, I've come to realize something important. I'm stronger than I thought. Losing Lisa, discovering she was capable of such betrayal, it hurt like hell. But it also forced me to see who I really am: someone who deserves honesty and respect, not lies and manipulation. One thing I've learned from this whole nightmare is that betrayal cuts deep, but it also clears a lot of fog. I used to think love meant never giving up, no matter what, no matter how many red flags or lies. Now I see that sometimes love means knowing when to walk away, even if it's the hardest thing you've ever had to do. Staying in a toxic relationship just drags you further down, makes you lose yourself. I don't want that anymore. I want to be with someone who truly cares, who values honesty, and who's willing to work through problems instead of hiding behind lies. Looking back, I realize I was naive. I believed her when she said she loved me, but love isn't just words, it's actions. And her actions showed she didn't respect me enough to be truthful. That realization hurts, but it also sets me free. I can finally stop pretending everything's okay when it's not. I can finally focus on healing, on rebuilding my life without the weight of her betrayal hanging over me. To anyone out there going through something similar, trust me, I get it. It's one of the most painful things you'll ever face, but you have to remember your worth. You don't deserve to be lied to, cheated on, or treated like an afterthought. Take the time you need to grieve, to process, but never let that pain define you. Use it as fuel to become stronger, wiser, and more cautious about who you let into your life. I've come to peace with the fact that I probably will never fully forget what happened. The scars will always be there, reminders of a betrayal I never saw coming. But they also serve as a warning. I will never again ignore the signs, and I will never allow someone to treat me so poorly again. Because at the end of the day, I know my worth. I know that I deserve honesty, loyalty, and true respect. No matter how much it hurts now, I'm moving forward. I'm building a better life, one where I don't have to doubt the people I love. And that's the best revenge of all, finding peace within myself, knowing that I am enough just as I am.